And welcome to Women in Collegiate Esports. My name is Karen Ruggles, and I'll be the panel moderator for this one. If you can hear me and see me, can you just put something in the chat just so I can be sure? Okay, so Jackie, I get a hi, so unless that's something else, I think we're pretty good to go. Well, I'm joined here by three wonderful women who are going to share some experiences, some reflections, and we actually had a little bit of pre-chat before this, which was really inspiring. So I'm looking forward to expanding that to you, as well as any questions, which we will have time for at the end. The bulk of this presentation and this panel will be us talking about different experiences and trying to really gain a joint effort toward a more inclusive space. So without further ado, let's go ahead and go. I don't know if you guys are the same as me, but let's see. We'll start with Danielle.
All right. So, hi guys, I'm Danielle. I am the head coach of Lawrence Tech University in Michigan. Yes, Antar. With a really great group of people that are supporting us, right? So we are brand new. We're going to compete in our inaugural season this fall, and I'm super excited about it. And I actually have two ladies, which I hope to expand to have more. But, Lawrence Tech is kind of actually a male-dominated school, so I'm kind of fighting against that. But I'll talk about the plan with that. And we are competing in 7 titles because I am crazy and have to grow really quick. So I'm new to esports, about a year in, and I came from healthcare. So
thank you. Teresa, give it a whirl.
Hi, everybody. I'm Teresa Gaffney from Messiah University, head coach, coordinator there. I'm basically been around collegiate for about 10 years, working for Collegiate Star League, working a bit with Harrisburg University, doing some freelance, and now winding up, keep coming back, can't stay away sort of thing. I'm also a mental health counselor in training, just about to wrap up that degree, and looking to combine mental health, wellness, training with coaching eventually. But right now, just really enjoying my time at Messiah, really enjoying this second full year competition we're going into. It's been a whirl, and I can't wait to talk more about what we've interfaced with, starting to bring in women into our program, starting to make a more inclusive space, and I'm happy to work with the rest of you here.
Thank you. And of course, Sari, you're up.
Hi, Sari Keitlin. I oversee the esports program at Full Sail University. I've been with Full Sail about 15 years and been building their esports efforts since late 2015. I will always and forever say building because I don't think we will ever be built, and that's kind of what I love about the program. For those that don't know, Full Sail is a school that specializes in entertainment, media, arts, and technology. So we have a ton of grads that really go into the space from all areas of the entertainment industry, specifically worlds like production and graphics and things of that nature. So how we approach esports at Full Sail is really all-encompassing, with the strongest focus being grads that work in the space. So we make a really strong effort to build a kind of cohesive and inclusive environment at Full Sail that includes a ton of women who are running our programs and a ton of women who are successful in the industry. So really excited to just connect with other people in this space and figure out how we can keep that conversation going.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to get us started off with just talking about women leadership and different involved examples that you might have. I know our audience today, we're on the public side, so we're talking to a lot of high schools or maybe colleges that are interested in joining NACE or just trying to learn a little bit more about the ecosystem that there is and likely trying to produce a very inclusive environment that, not only has women in their roster, but also leaders like we all are. So I would encourage you just to pipe in. We're not going to go, person by person here, but just thinking of different inspirational leaders that you know. I know you all are, but just different examples that we can throw out there to exemplify women in esports.
I'm always going to throw out Dana Husted, who I think is the queen bee and everything to everything that it is esports. I think she has done such a good job at paving the way for programs to understand the value of women in their space. And I have so much respect and admiration for everything that she has done in collegiate and beyond.
And I think Michael Brooks really, encompassed this as well with this idea of raise the tide and, everyone sort of raising together. I feel like that's something that we all do within our programs for our women players. Is there any leadership that you've seen there that you have specifically seen for your women players, or any kind of crowning stories?
So actually, my first young lady that came to the team was part of the DEI. She's their student assistant, and she works for them. So it's really awesome because we work kind of in the same office, because I'm in athletics, but not in athletics. So I'm in the student affairs office. And she had approached me and said, hey, Coach, I was really interested in joining. I'm not amazing, but I really want to be part of this. And that she actually came from a softball program. So she started reaching out to other ladies within, she's in a sorority. So she reached out to another young lady who plays COD, actually, which we don't fully have a COD team yet, but working on that. So she reached out to her, and both of those ladies are working on, they've already wanted to come to all like athletic events and big public events together to try to bring more women in to our program. Because like I said, at LTU, we don't really have it's like 80% men population. And I think that's improved in the last 10 years. I guess it was 95 or something like that because of engineering school. So she's really stepped up in like advocating for women and being like the voice of women on my team so far. Yeah, we haven't competed yet, but I pretty much anticipate that like she's going to do that same thing, and just want to really embody what it is to be like a female in esports, because we've had discussions about it. So, she's a student, but still is, I'm impressed by her.
And Teresa, I think, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm impressed hearing that, because you need that enthusiasm from the ground up. And I found that historically, a lot of the collegiate level clubs, since working for a very long time here, have been started or maintained and advocated for by the female members. So, for instance, I think of, off the top of my head, Carmen Lamb from UBC. She's not, there anymore. It's been many years since she's graduated, but her name was all over the beginning of collegiate history. So, for me, I hear that, and I think, they may not be active in the scene anymore, but giving them props would be important for us to remember that there was stuff that happened earlier on than our recent memories. A lot of programs starting after 2015, a lot of programs started in the club level beforehand too. So the founder of CSL was a female, and she's still not, active right now. Mona Zhang, another name that comes to mind, but she's still a part of that history. So I like to go back and throw it back, that, kind of like beginning of time sort of approach, where I think we find it difficult to find female names sometimes in esports, but they're there. You just have to cast your net a little bit farther back too.
Yeah, I was actually going to push you in that direction. So we're like right on the same wavelength, which I love.
Awesome.
And so thinking of those different kind of all-stars that you have in your head, past, present, we're looking towards the future. So I think a lot of the people listening today are interested in that idea of mentorship. So how to, either laterally, if you are a male program director or a male athletic director, what are some ways that you can attract, keep, produce inclusive environments that allow your, in sort of a peripheral sense, a colleague feel empowered, and just, different examples of what someone can do externally to make that inclusive space and be intentional about it, because you might, have that mindset, but in order to project it into and make sure it's core to the program that you're building. any thoughts surrounding that idea of mentorship, or just working, if you are a man and trying to produce an inclusive environment for a woman coming in.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, I didn't know. Raise my hand. Because we're talking with our hands, we were talking about. So, anywho, it's to actually to take a moment and listen. That's the main thing in a mentorship, is you need to listen and try to understand what somebody's going through. I think one of the things we talked about earlier, without getting too deep off the question, was in the beginning of all of us who used to play games in our younger years, at least myself and some of them, is that I had to keep it secret that I was playing games because I was, in athletics, and it wasn't cool. So I understand that, and I don't know that men, they can understand by association, but it's just the simple fact of understanding that it's still kind of not cool for younger girls to play, and they're pushed away from it. So trying to help build them up and saying, hey, we support you, we listen to you, we want to help you in growing and being a part of this. And I think another thing is you should, if it's a highly male dominated team, you should still have another female that's kind of like a counselor that might not understand esports, but could still be approached, because it's just the same as if I'm a female, so I will have a male counterpart. There's some things we're not going to say to each other that, I think you need somebody who's there to support them and understand what they're going through.
I totally agree. I 150,000%. We were talking about it earlier about before kids are ever even coming close to collegiate, they're battling. Girl gamers are battling the conversation of whether they want to be proud to be a gamer or not. And I think bringing that pride back really does help. I also always like to say that creating a truly inclusive environment really has a lot to do with how you combat toxicity, in my opinion. So having a zero tolerance policy for toxicity is awesome. Having a policy that can actually reward those or teach those to mitigate toxicity is even better. And so just simply removing toxicity is great, but when they go out into the world, or they go out into the industry, or this is the space they want to work in, unfortunately, it might be something that they're going to continue to battle. So every gender that you have coming through your program, having an active role in teaching how to not only not be toxic, but combat it when it's coming up against you, really does a lot for the inclusivity of an environment for any gender across the board, or for any underrepresented communities that are within the esports space. And it's something they take with them as they enter into the industry.
I really like what you said there about the past, Sari. It's like when you're targeting a problem, you look for some of the roots of it, some of the causes. And I think a big topic in esports right now in the collegiate side is talking about the high school and middle school side of growing programs as feeders, or just, continuums of experience. So my other job is working at Emerald Esports here in PA, and we help foster clubs for the high school and middle school level. And we're developing a mentorship program for girls called Girls in Gaming. And it's to give that perspective of, here are the problems, let's avoid the problems by putting actions in place, and let's get it from women in the industry. So I think being very solution focused, I say get into your communities early, start talking to the high schools, to the girls that are on that level, and start telling them about your experiences. And, hey, this is an inclusive environment because we have a no toxic, policy. We are totally inclusive, and this is something that you can expect from gaming. It's not all what you hear on Call of Duty, chats. It's just really just getting out there and spreading the message and enacting things. I think we've been very cerebral about these topics for years. We've always wanted to help women in esports, but now is the time to actually get planning and get the feet on the ground. So I would say really just start groups would be my suggestion to anybody listening in. Start getting, conversations going with your scholastic community and on your campus about, what women in esports might experience and just help them out. If there's anything they need, just get a conversation going. That helps more than you think.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I actually think too, if you can gear it towards non-gamers in the vernacular, because my boss had no idea. And he's just like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that these things are happening to you. I'm like, you can apologize, but I've been dealing with this for X amount of years. So people are going to be rude. They're going to tell me to go make a sandwich. They're going to do that. But we have to lead by example, and you need to understand that like your sons and daughters are doing this when you're not watching them. So just understand that, to teach them that that's not okay, and other women are going to like step up and partake. And I know I digressed a little bit there, but
I think it fits in perfectly because in my mind, I'm so excited that the middle school and high schools are becoming more officiated, because I make the analogy a lot, especially to non-gamers who are like, well, what is this? I have no idea where to put this, in a box, and they're trying to learn. And if you're trying to start an esports program at your school, or maybe it's year one for you, you're gonna have those conversations with naysayers, but also people who are genuinely interested. And I'm so excited with the middle school and high school, because the analogy I give is like basketball, right? So if I go play a pickup game with my friends on, the community blacktop or whatever, I'm going to be throwing elbows. My words are going to be different because it's not being coached, right? If I go show up to a varsity basketball game, you better believe I'm playing by the rules, because I don't want to get kicked off the team. And that's really the same division that we have starting to emerge right now, because with esports right now, it's a lot of young gentlemen kind of policing themselves, and trying to one-up each other and, crack a joke with their friends and throw the elbow and do things that are not appropriate. And as soon as they start in those younger years to be shown, this is not what we do, right? This is varsity. And if you want to be part of the team, you better cut that language. And I'm so excited for that, because then I don't have to do it at collegiate, like they will already go through that. And, a lot of the basketball players, they've been playing, since they were 6, and they've been through that how to be coached section. So I think we're at a really unique portion. So any high schoolers out there, like, please grind it into them, because it will only help them think more peripherally about how they treat the person in front of them. And I do think that there is, and I'm interested in your thought process with this as well, the digression, because it's a screen, right? You don't have to face necessarily the opponent that you're berating. So whether it's whoever is on the other end of that line. So there is that culture of being able to be disconnected and kind of say whatever you want and get away with it. So it really comes back to the program, really. Any thoughts surrounding that?
I think the other thing too, what you're hitting the nail on the head, in my opinion, and what we see all the time. And I think the other big scenario is a lot of what we're dealing with are like microaggressions. So people don't realize it's them. And I think that it's a trained and innate behavior that starts to come out as like what you just said. They see their friends and they see their people doing it. And I think they could see, oh my God, you're being toxic to women. And I honestly want to believe this. And I honestly feel like I don't know that a lot of people completely realize that they're doing it, or what the severe effect is that they have with these the amount of make me a sandwich comments that we see is insane. And the proof of the microaggression that you see, which is the most common thing I think that women are really dealing, is a death by paper cut or whatever. It's like repetitive nonsense on a constant basis. And I read an article the other day about how many women choose like non-gender descript gamer tags, or have changed their gamer tags throughout their gameplay so that they're not recognizable as women in the space. And if that's not the most evident descriptor of there being a big problem to kids at a young age, that they don't want anybody to know that they could possibly be a woman or a girl, is a problem. And I think the more that we do as a group to understand the microaggression causes, to start educating people on what these things are, again, towards that younger generation, I do think can help mitigate the culture globally and goes back to the pride conversation, make women proud to have their gamer tags that they've had their whole lives, because they want to be known as a woman in the space.
Yeah, a good, like, when you're talking about no repercussions for screens. Yeah, it's been going on in gaming for a while. We're seeing it actually a lot on social media. So that's a good, for somebody like my boss who doesn't play games and understand that, it's a very good in line, I guess is the word, with what is happening there. It's just not as aggressive because, but there is some aggressive stuff on social media. So it'll just be interesting. We're just almost like fostering an entire younger generation and older with social media to start being that same way. In games, it's the same. It's just we keep definition of insanity, do the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. I think that this is, to your point also earlier about using language and context outside of gaming, Danielle, it's a STEM-related issue in many industries that, women don't feel as comfortable maybe as their male counterparts. And you'll always have people who argue the opposite, but I feel like I've heard computer science majors at my school just indicate less comfort, than their male counterparts. This is not an esports only problem. And I think that also helps this is if you are in touch with other academic departments in your school, that you have people in your program majoring in, maybe getting involved with professors there to help create, dialogue where it's more accepting, just awareness, again, getting very active, just starting to create, panels of discussions, hosting, nights at the Esports Center, which is like, open to any student who wants to talk about this issue. Again, starting on the high school and middle school level, having these conversations, all of this, it's so connected, it's so interconnected, and it doesn't have to be seen as just an esports problem. It's a STEM endemic issue.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, I was walking through campus with another student, and I had seen a young woman playing, actually League every day that I was in office during COVID. And I mentioned, like, I introduced myself and that student was with me when I introduced myself. And as we walked away, the student was like, well, she's not any good. I'm like, but she plays every day that I see her and she's continuing to push forward, but she's never going to play with you because you continue to say that and you probably treat her as such, which is pretty crappy. That I'll say it that way. So there's girls out there. So that's all. Yeah, sorry.
And I think that kind of leads to our next point. As we were preparing for this panel a couple of weeks ago, we were kind of touching on this idea of surviving versus thriving, and the line between that, specifically for women in esports. Any reflections surrounding that tipping point, or that distinction between surviving as a woman in esports and then going over to be a thriving woman in esports? That's like a really deep question.
Yeah, I don't know that I am the one to even start, so I'll start. That way they can follow, and I'll set it up super easy for them. Because I kind of said in the beginning before we even went live, I'm new and haven't had a chance to compete yet. But Michigan has a really, good support system, and Jackie's in here in the chat too, and Emily and AJ and all those people, and you lovely ladies. So I've had a lot of great support so far. That being said, since it's already, which I would say at this point, I'm thriving. So come maybe next year, I'll talk about this, and then I'll be just surviving. Hopefully not, and you guys all don't. Not you guys in here or in this chat, but hopefully it doesn't turn to surviving and people become toxic to me, because I am a big voice and I've learned to be a big voice. So, but I would say kudos to all of you that are lifting each other up, the newbies. I think that says a lot, and we're creating a good space for each other. But again, I haven't had those experiences yet, so I'll turn it over to you two.
I think for me,
all right, AJ.
I think
sorry.
Sorry, I think that was really well put, though. I think the definition of surviving and thriving depends on the person. So you get to define, Danielle, if you're thriving and surviving next year. And that's an individual experience. So I would say for any woman in this field is like, define right now what thriving is for you. Is thriving continuing to work in esports in 5 years, or is thriving, learning and growing and entertaining options to take your wisdom elsewhere? Or what do you want to do? So find those mentors now, find support now, keep doing what everyone here in this group is saying. So for me, my idea of success has changed over the past 10 years in esports. I was volunteering, like, other people I've heard over this conference, not getting a paycheck till, maybe 2015, 16, but haven't been in it for years before that. I thought at that time, thriving is just getting a paycheck. Now it's, making an impact. So I've changed that goal over the years, and I'm satisfied with that. And I've also learned to just go with the flow because it's different every year. I think growing companionships, growing the fellowships of the ring, so to speak, here have been helpful at NACE and otherwise, knowing people that are going through the same thing. So for me, I think surviving is starting with that. Thriving is growing that.
I like that a lot. I think that's a really awesome approach to the conversation. I think in mine, I always think of thriving as when we break down the token wall. We had this conversation a while ago when we were starting this panel. I love and appreciate how much organizations and administrations everywhere are really wanting to diversify their leadership or diversify their programs. And you learn very quickly, I think, and I'm sure a lot of people in this chat have seen this too, that you've checked off a box by being in the space for maybe some people at that organizational level. And what I love the most about what NACE is putting together here is it's more than just making sure they've represented women in their space. They're doing a lot on the efforts of supporting that and providing that network. I kind of consider it an obligation, but I stopped agreeing to speaking sessions and panels where I didn't feel like there was any follow through. So just checking off the box so there's a woman on a panel, I don't want to do that. I really try to make a conscious effort not to. And I have in turn tried to say, like, work on a program that really supports underrepresented communities. And I would love to happily come back and speak to you. I don't think I totally realized at the time how much that of an obligation I think that rides with me. If I want to be a woman in this space, I think I have that level of an obligation to better the space. And so I think it's really just kind of keeping an eye on that, especially in the diversity conversations here, especially at universities that are really wanting to pay an effort and attention to it. Love that you want to, and I love that you want to diversify. It's more than just representation. I think representation totally matters, but it has to have something behind it. It has to have support behind it. So in my opinion, surviving is being able to not cry every day at work. And then thriving, I really think, is when the people that are coming behind me or the people that we're paving the way for are going to have a healthier environment than maybe what some of us have had.
I love all of those. That's, it just goes to show what a stellar panel we put together through NACE and the all of the wonderful women that we get to work with on a daily basis just through NACE. So it's very inspiring to me. So I'm going to move on. I think I'm going to hit this question and then maybe we'll take some questions from chat. We have a few other prompts to go for, but I think some of the questions as I'm seeing them come through might kind of spin off and I want to give them kind of their due space. But I think, one of the big questions we sort of touched on it in the beginning is that idea of being a supportive and creating more inclusive space within a program. So we did talk about, a no tolerance, situation or being able to approach, different students or having it in a team guide. Any other thoughts surrounding, specifically a program with, before we talked more about like peripherally that you're working with a coworker who might be a program director or a coach, but thinking more critically about protecting and providing an inclusive space for young women in your games or attracting recruits and demonstrating through your actions that you are actively creating an inclusive space. So any ideas as action items for different programs who might be listening to start that journey through what they're trying to produce?
I think, when you're putting out your tryout list, make sure that if you're using imagery, make sure it's inclusive imagery. If you're a new program, I think it just helps, ease the conversation or the approach for girls that might sign up. And if you see tryouts with women in it, maybe you need to approach them individually and say, hey, I saw your name on the list. Want to let you know tryouts are these days. If you have any questions or comments, maybe they will have a concern that you don't know about. Be open to conversation, especially knowing that in your applications for tryouts, there will probably only be a few girls right now. It's okay to spend some extra time making sure that they feel safe or welcome or any questions asked. I just do that. My presence, I think, is helpful. But the second I found a female player for Overwatch, it helped so much because that really made the girls on campus better at accessing the space, talking about things, and now it's way easier than me needing to say, hey, it's okay. You have an active student participant doing that for you. So I think it's just spend the extra time. What is coming your way, and really just extend yourself.
I like that. I think listening and providing action to what you hear can go a really long way. I have two, they're very small examples, but I really think they helped. When we've done tryouts, or we have usually an interest form, because more often than can I try out for your team is why don't you have a team in X, whatever game it might be, any game in the world that we don't have a team for. So we had quite a few women that were coming in from Rainbow Six, and we were not currently at the time fielding a Rainbow Six team, and thought about it at the moment of should we field one because we have women interested in it, and it just didn't necessarily feel right. But what we did do is we created a Rainbow Six event that we let them run and drive and create and be a part of, and help facilitate and just enjoy that component of it, bring gaming culture to something that they enjoy, even if we couldn't necessarily support it varsity wise. And that, I think, really made a big difference. The other thing and I honestly think it's they might not necessarily be the most competitive players, but they have a really strong interest in the industry itself. And there's a world beyond varsity gameplay that I think they can help. We've had women that might not have been able to compete at the level of the rest of the team fill roles like captains, non-playing captains, which is really cool. We see some really strong leadership from that perspective, and just providing support in that regards. Not necessarily placing them above higher competitors, but making sure there's plenty of opportunity if they could be close to it and have a strong interest in it. That kind of facilitates that. The other scenario that we deal with a lot is, obviously, like we were talking about with toxicity, we have a zero tolerance policy for toxicity, but in any cases when people are taking an active role at maybe talking down some of their teammates that might be starting to get into behavior they shouldn't, even if it's offline, we will prioritize those. So say we get an opportunity to engage with a pro team, or we get an opportunity to engage with a publisher, we will select those instead of the highest competitors, those that take an active role in combating toxicity, as inviting them to lunch with the publisher as they come in, or inviting them to any sort of con or tournament, just kind of trying to make the extra room for somebody that takes an active role, even if it's not in varsity gameplay. And that's really helped, because the last thing you want to do, I think it makes the situation worse, is prioritizing them above higher level competitors. Then I don't think that helps either side in that conversation. But I think finding other opportunities and just being able to listen has really helped.
Yeah, that's kind of why both of my ladies are not the strongest players, but that's kind of what my plan is with them. Oddly enough, because I'm in student life, so we were able to do a couple. I mean, it wouldn't be called esports, but we'll call it esports competitions for Greek life, which believe me, now I'm going to have my esports team participate in to help run it, because that was a headache in itself. But we were able to separate the fraternities and the sororities, and they each got to pick their own title. Because I have every game under the sun, I allowed them to pick whatever they wanted. And the ladies actually picked Smash and Mario Kart, which the gentleman picked Rocket League and COD. But just continuing to do things like that and having, all women competition on campus, that also promotes within the university. The other thing is I've been really trying to push our media team to talk to both of our ladies and trying to promote more females so that younger generations can see it. It's not necessarily on campus. It's the high schools in the area. I'm also fortunate because we have state champs on our campus, so they do all of our promotion and such, and they are able to go to different high schools and they create competitions. So I went to a local high school and there was only one female on there. It's actually Northville High School. One female on the team. I was still impressed that there was a female, and they seem to be. I was watching from afar, watching him interact, and I think it's really awesome that the younger men were supporting her and the actual team was being supportive. So, yeah.
Yeah, some excellent reflections there. I do want to stress, I think, Danielle, you were saying this before, that idea of having, if you are a completely sort of male-driven entity on wherever you are, your campus, whatever it may be, to either peripherally involve a faculty member that identifies as a woman, so that there is that channel for young women to see and bring, I think the important part is, allowing that toxicity to be reported either by a peer, whether that peer is, the one who witnessed it, who happens to be a young gentleman who was like, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, or I could tell that she was upset by that. And having that very obvious on your Discord, channel or wherever, that there is a process if you see these things happening. And, we have a team guide at DeSales where we very, very blatantly, list out, we call it sportsmanship or, fair play, and saying like, these things are not accepted. Don't do that, first of all. But this is varsity, like sort of I was saying before. So those things are not tolerated, and, a clear action of what will happen if you can do that for the first infraction, but then also if it continues to happen and becomes a repetitive problem, you will be kicked off the team. So these are things that we take very seriously. And I think that having that spelled out for all of the players allows women to feel supported, because they know that if this happens repetitively, that actions will be taken. And there's a clear way to, channel that and give that feedback as a woman or as a peer who's seeing those things happen. So I think that that's a really important part in introducing that inclusive space and making sure that everybody is aware of the repercussions as well as the avenues for complaint, if you will. So I'm going to take a look at chat here. I see
a lot of questions.
Yes, I'm doing it. Okay, so CC Jacobs, program manager at GamerSA, says we are did I miss that? Okay, so we are also recently acquired by Corp. I thought there was one prior. Oh, I just need to scroll up a little bit. So he says, my wife and I are feminists, and I personally have been struggling over the years with finding actionable ways to include women in what we are building at Gamer Sensei, despite being a key part of leadership at our company. Specifically, I would love to begin by recruiting more female coaches to our platform. Do you have any tips on where we can look to recruit top-tier female talent in esports? And then he does have a follow-up question as well. Any thoughts there?
There's a ton. People are writing them in the chat, but there's a ton of great groups. Women in Games does an amazing program, and I think people will flock to it. The Gamehers is an awesome organization. There's just so many of them out there that are really helping bring people together. I think becoming a part of that is really helpful.
So I think that also kind of addresses his follow-up question as well. But it says, we were also recently acquired by Corsair. So outside of recruiting female coaching talent, what can we as larger organizations, both Corsair and Gamer Sensei, do to champion women in esports and make women feel accepted and empowered at all levels of play, from middle school to high school to collegiate and professional play?
Well, I think starting with hiring more female coaches to your platform is a great way to start, because I've used the platform. There aren't many. And I think that comes with maybe approaching collegiate programs and say, hey, do you have really great pick that you think would be an appropriate coach? Maybe starting like that, almost like internship approach, like, hey, we're looking for staff. We're looking for coaches. And approaching the colleges is usually the best way to find, potential talent. So knowing that there are female players throughout all the teams I've interacted with, there's at least one, and there's some high ranked ones, and they're probably good coaches. Because I think that, even in my case, a lot more self-reflection, a lot more ability to lead I've seen in some of the female players I've worked with. Try there. I think that's a great place to start. And as Gamer Sensei is like probably the top coaching platform people use, that is enough to get the ball rolling, and then developing more as that catches on. Because then you have access to females that can support panels, discussions, bigger initiatives with Corsair.
I think she said it perfectly. I don't have anything else to add. I'm Team Teresa all the way. So
I'm team both of you. Gamers, I was like, yes, that you're exactly right. I'm actually in those Discords, so I don't know why I wouldn't think of those. So.
And let me see. I think I scrolled past it. Let me get back to it here. So Kyle, also head of marketing for Gamer Sensei, asks, what are these conversations like with parents of young women who want to pursue esports? Are they worried about the boys club aspect, harassment, toxicity, or largely uninformed?
I honestly, I am a parent, and these are some of the hardest conversations to have, and they should be easier for me, and they aren't, because it's not the gamer's fault, or it's not their kid's fault 90% of the time in these conversations. They're worried about their kids for a reason. And so I really just think it's the logical conversation that we keep having of making the space better. The thing I always try to recommend, honestly, I'm actually really happy. There's a ton of groups now starting to really take shape on supporting parents in gaming. There's COPE. There's the new one that Ken Bun just started that I cannot remember the name off the top of my head, but there's a lot of really good parent support groups that are starting as well, which I think is great. Esports family. Thanks, guys. For my team. They're always so good. They're awesome. I think that is honestly truly needed, because parents are right to be worried, I guess, in some extent, as evidenced by our conversation here. The biggest thing I always try to recommend, and what we try to do on our end, is just to stay involved. Don't blind yourself and say, I just don't understand what this world is at all, and they're doing what they're doing. It's really easy to understand if you just start a little bit, engage a bit, even let them stream from their room, and you watch and you follow on Twitch and you watch what happens and you see how they handle themselves. I think it's a good way to bridge the conversation as a whole. I wish I had a better answer, but I think it's a definitely a big problem today, but I appreciate that people are trying to address it. I think just staying involved and staying connected is a really great way to understand.
Yeah. I invite the parents every time I talk to a recruit. Now, granted, they're adults, but adults. My mom was still involved when I was 18 a little bit, but so I invite the parents just because I want to talk about it and say, hey, these are the things I'm not going to tolerate any out of line behavior, whether it be, homophobic, against religion, against gender, any of those things, because, gaming, that's what gaming's about, where we all come together to have fun because we like to do this. So it's really important that we talk about it early. But sometimes the recruits don't want their parents because it's a very adult thing. But still, I mean, I'll in the future have a parent seminar that I'm going to say, hey, they're all invited and we can talk about it just so you can support and try to. I mean, that might be a random approach, but
I love that. That's awesome. That's such a good idea.
Yeah, I have meet and greets with parents that when their students, potential students are coming in a program, love meeting them. That's actually some of the best times I've had personally. And believe it or not, the hardest conversations I've had have not been with the female potential recruits' parents. It's been with males. So I think you can extend the same conversation to any of your players. Sensitivity, understanding about every family is different, every situation is different. Perhaps your institution's values are different, and as a result, the people coming in might have different questions. We can't run certain games because of the peace stance from the school, so there's questions there. Is this a violent game? So I think it's a broader question than just talking to the female student parents. It's very hard for every coach, and I think that everybody in NACE will have had at least a couple of difficult conversations in the past. So appreciate and recognize you all.
So the next question, although it doesn't have a question mark, but I think it's a question, is from Adam Antor, who we all kind of know love here. So shout out to Adam. So Adam says, and he specifies as white male coaches, haven't gotten really good at answering the how do you promote diversity question without necessarily putting real effort into it day to day. What are some real tangible things we can do in our programs to foster excitement about esports from female students on campus in our recruitment pipeline? I think we kind of touched on some of those, but any other reflections?
Do those Mario Kart and Smash games. Do them. That's what's resonated with ours, and we're seeing more potential Smash recruits for the fall just from doing community-oriented events. Don't stay off in your room in your LAN center. Get out into the student body. Be a part of your student body. That is something that has always been an issue because you put so much time into your team. It's hard to find time to get out into the general student body and make those events happen. But that's my biggest heck yeah, do it sort of motivation. That's been attracting more and more female players in general, just being in the student body community playing games.
Yeah, I kind of said that earlier with my young ladies doing their, it's not really tailgating, but we'll call it that. The other thing we're going to probably be doing, not probably, we are doing, we have a few students who are multi-sport athletes. So I reached out to all of my team and I said, we will be as a team supporting each one of them at another event. And whether you like the event or not, it's more about support because we support each other and just being out there as a team. I have a motley crew of people. I want them to see all these people that come together and enjoy themselves. So, reaching out and just, I also tell them if they have any other females that they know that like to game, let me know. I want to talk to them.
Yeah, I think honestly, even just owning it, being fully aware and understanding the fact that there's a diversity issue globally and maybe you might be on the good side of it. Even just doing that is bigger than anything a lot of us have ever seen. So even being there is awesome. And the other thing I think beyond that is, I heard this sentiment the other day that I've really been clicking to, which is that clarity brings confidence. And I do think, and I saw somebody else's comment a bit ago where it's he was talking about women focusing on what they need to fix, but not necessarily always focusing on what they do great. And I think a level of clarity drops a lot of insecurities. So even just owning it, having these conversations with, underrepresented communities that want to join or that you want to join, to say we need you, we need your help in bringing this to the forefront. We recognize, we're trying to make an effort here. We're trying to really grow in these spaces and in these communities. And with bringing clarity to the conversation, a lot of insecurities can drop and you'll find leaders emerge and that continues the conversation going.
I think that was Josh's question, I think from Josh Diegers. I love that because as a mental health counselor, asking about how to boost confidence in your female players is like dear to my heart. And I think some of that may also be if you're recognizing difficulties with one of your players, that maybe this is a pervasive issue, not just in gaming. You know, it's okay to refer out. You are someone who can say, I think, you know, there's a lot going on here. You know, are you feeling good about your gameplay? Is something else going on in your life? A coach is like not a counselor, but they can take gaps there and run with it and be helping them walk through those day-to-day experiences. Is anything else leading to your inner voice sounding like this negative and you can't pick up on your strengths? Maybe you do have to refer out to a counselor on campus. You know, I think that's okay too. And we've done that and it's been okay and it's worked out great. So I think those are some small tangible ways to answer that question, but I wonder what the rest of the group thinks.
Oh, you're muted.
Oh no. Did we lose Danielle?
Oh, I don't know. One thing I would also kind of to piggyback on that would be, you know, you probably know your student's major, so you could also potentially reach out to their academic advisor, or you know, at DeSales we have like what they call a care team. So we have a form that's an early alert form. So if we feel like a student is kind of off or for whatever reason, we can submit this form and it goes to this team and they say, wow, we got, you know, an issue from coach, we got an issue from their one, you know, general education core, and we also got an issue from their academic advisor. So maybe we need to use our network to reach out to this student. So if they live on campus, maybe the RA would kind of check in with them, or a counselor might say like, hey, you know, anything you want to maybe chat about or something like that. So, you know, the university is its own community. So use that as an opportunity to connect with people you know are invested in the student and want to see the student succeed, because we're all in this together, you know, and that's, I think, part of a healthy environment. I think Danielle is back. Did your mic? No.
No. Oh.
What's happening?
Use your hands. Use your hands.
Use your hands. Another question, and I know we're running low on time, was a thought about if you already have a team, should you create a female team with some games have already, and second, when setting up a coach, should you try a male or female coach? So I think the idea, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this might be an unpopular opinion, but it's always been my opinion. I think rather than taking women out of the space and creating a space that is safe for them, we need to make the space safer that allows them to participate and have full opportunities. I totally always love and appreciate the intention behind all women teams, and I respect where that's coming, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. It just can't be the only thing. The goal is to make the global space a place for women to be able to feel safe and secure, and for all genders and for all communities. And so that's personal opinion, my personal gut opinion. The other thing, I totally love what Danielle was saying about how she brings women into the conversation. And I think it's something everybody can do, and it's important. It's something that we do here as well. So like we have a lot of women leaders, but there may be leaders on the production side. So like our esports content creators are women, our esports content and event producers a woman, the person who runs all of our budgets and tells us no all the time is a woman. And so even just having ancillary support from around the university that are those that can be levels of that conversation like Danielle did, I find that to be more valuable than trying to specifically target a woman coach if you don't necessarily have one. Like Teresa was saying, I think there should be more women coaches. I think there should be more women everywhere, but I would also tap into the current resources that you have, because, you know, while this is a prominent problem in the gaming space, it's a problem that underrepresented communities have dealt with forever. So you'll be able to find those that can help and support you that might have even a passion for doing so. That could be also a good connection.
Can you hear me?
I'm all about healing your space too. I love that. Love it.
What I was going to say, oddly enough, to all you men out there, my favorite coach of all time was a male. So just be supportive and listen. You don't have to do anything super crazy. Just understand. I mean, I'm telling you, my all-time, if he walked in the room, I'd be like, shoulders back, straight and narrow. But it's just, you just be you and be the supportive men that you are. I could keep going on, but I think that summation.
Yeah, I think it's important to also verbalize that to the group of young men and young women who you're in charge of, to say, this is a priority for me, that we are trying to make an inclusive space. This is how I'm trying to do it, but I know that I'm still working on this. So allowing that failure to be approachable as a leader is what makes you a leader. So if you do use the wrong pronoun or have a slip of the tongue for something, create a space that someone can correct you and it's not punitive. That you say, thank you for correcting me. I didn't realize that I said that. And everybody can follow that example to say, wow, it's not such a rigid environment that if I, say the wrong thing, everyone's going to attack me. But they're students, right? It's a learning environment. They are going to mess up. But the purpose here is that's a teachable moment, that you grab that moment immediately and make it a safe place. And don't wait to, if a girl gets called out for something, you don't wait till it's all done and then kind of bring them behind and say, how did that feel? Well, it felt bad. That's why you pulled them aside, so there's, to be active in that situation and actively creating a safe environment, I think is just as important as demonstrating that you're working just as hard as they are.
And if you need advice or insight, I'm going to speak for all of us, reach out to all of us. And probably even all the women in chat. We're here to help. Who better to help than the people experiencing it or have experienced? I'm not really out of.
I think that too. And I think Karen hit the nail on the head and said it flawlessly. I think just not being afraid to make mistakes and asking if you don't know, asking what the right question is. There's a big generational thing. I recognize I'm on the older end of this, but there's a big generational thing for those of us, in our 40s and above, that is things we were raised differently or things that might not know. And we all want to be inclusive and we're learning and we're trying. And I think that there's situations of learning to refer to women over females and learning to know the difference between the scientific term and the emotional term and getting to that point. And as long as you're trying and you show an active effort that you are, that's what people want. They want to know what their, what the intentions are. And I think we can get there.
We will.
Yeah, and I think that's a pretty. I know there's one question just about characters in games as women and how they have impacted women's attitudes about gaming or any attitudes towards women, which I think is an important part. I don't know if we can do it in 3 minutes or less, but I'm going to try. I'll push that to you guys. So women representation in the games that we play.
I always pick a female. Sometimes I question if I should, and is the outcome going to be different if I'm a male, which is silly thing. But I think as I've played more and more, Call of Duty bothers me that it's all right, what does it say? All right, boys. Jackie's could probably say it better than I could. But Jackie. Come on. All right, boys. On you. No. All right, people or something. Guys, that's very Midwestern though.
That's funny. I intentionally end a lot of my classes by saying, okay, ladies, have a great day. And I start my classes by saying, good morning, guys. So that, because some of the guys are like, I'm not a lady. And I'm like, well, she's not a guy, and it's just so in our vernacular. And I think that goes to the part of, having bringing that to the forefront and saying to people, stop me if I'm using a term that is just putting you in a bad spot so I can try to correct myself.
Yeah. We have one of our esports content creators. She starts all of her streams with ladies, gentlemen, and everybody in between. And she just kind of goes in that direction. And it sort of woke us all up a little bit of oh yeah, that's a pretty interesting thing that you don't really always think about.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time. I know we're 1 minute too, so I'm going to thank our panel and thank our audience. And please reach out on Discord or email or wherever, even through this platform, we can follow us or whatever and get in contact if you need any type of assistance. We'd be happy to help you. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.